Hi everybody, Nigel the Review, Nigel's Modelling Bench, and here we are now with part 2 of the build of this CSS H.L. Hunley from Mikr Mir, and it's not a bad little kit actually. So we've got the, as we saw at the end of part 1, we've got all the riveting done, and I've now sanded it all down and I've blended it all down so that the rivets, as you can see there, they kind of just blend in with the originals. So it's all going to look, I mean, it's all going to be highlighted and shaded and probably dry brushed to that anyway, so it's all going to sort of blend in, and it's going to be a very, very, very dark grey, not black, it's going to be a very, very dark grey. So so that's it. So our seams are all done, everything's good, and the hull is basically done. So the next, I've glued this box on while I was off camera. It was slightly out of shape at the back there, so you can see I've put some black super glue in there as a filler, and then I'll go around with some Mr. Surfacer just to make that seam free, or it might be okay as it is, to be honest. So I'm looking at these hatches. Now you can see we've got hatches here going on, and they're showing them here with the cutouts both at the back. This one should be at the back, this one should be at the front, I believe. I'll have to check my references, but this one here, you can't possibly fit it with the hinges at the front because you've got those two portholes there in the way. So the hinges there go back, so that one opens that way. I believe this one opens the other way. Looking at the image on the front of the box, it certainly looks like it does. Let's get the box over. You can see there, you can see that one is opening that way. So I'd assume those go on there. I'll check my references and make sure. It could be that that drawing is wrong. So we basically want to get these on. So I've been looking at the parts, and I don't know if you can see this very well, but I'll show you the hinge. I've got the PE hinges, as you can see I've got here, and they actually are designed to go on here, and you can see that on that clear part there are some little areas that are shown where they fit, and they sort of go on. And I don't like, if you look there, yeah, I'm sorry, I've been growing my nails and I bloody bit them all off last night. Idiot. I don't even realise I'm doing it when I'm doing it, and then suddenly I realise I've bitten them all off. It's so annoying. But I don't really know if you can see that. It's very difficult to get it in shot. There's no real positive fit for it. So what I've done, I've got my little razor saw here, and I've started off by going up against the edge. It's like a sort of segment chopped out of it, so I'll go up against that edge to try and keep it all square. I just run the saw down just like so, just keep doing that, checking for square and everything, just to get in like that, and then we're going to crank it around, and then we're going to keep going. And what I'm doing here, as you can see here, we've got artscale.eu, which is who makes this lovely little saw. They're available in the UK from Hunley, or you can get them direct from Artscale's website themselves. They're a fantastic company. Their masks are absolutely brilliant. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going so that it just goes over the lettering on there. So however deep that is, let's have a look for you in case you don't have an Artscale saw. It's approximately 3mm deep I'm going. I'll do the same on the other side, but I won't do that now. And then what I can do is take this hinge and basically slot it into that slot. Just like so. Come on, go in there. Don't play up just because the camera's on. Doesn't want to go in there now. But basically you get the idea, you can slot that in there. And here's one Blue Peter style as I prepared earlier. So you can see what I've done is sort of slotted them into there. And they fit in there a lot nicer than they do just sat on the top. And I've just put a blob of glue on the inside, the black VMS thin, just to sort of hold them in place. And then once we get them on, that's going to go there. I've got some super glue on there from where I tried it before. Just get rid of that. So we can drop that down on there and then test fit one of these hinges. This is the other type of hinge that goes onto the sub body, the upright there. And that's going to go like that in there, obviously, and then we put a pin through. Okay, so you can see there how it's going to. I'll show you in a minute when it's all done. It's the best thing. And you can see on the instructions here they're telling you to use a piece of wire. It looks like, I don't know, 0.3, but it's not. It's 0.8. I've got a piece of 0.8 plastic rod here, and it fits perfectly. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll glue this on with plastic cement, let that dry, and then fit the hinges afterwards. So I'm going to go on now and fit those hinges into this hatch, and then we'll come back and I'll do one, and then I'll show you how I do it after I've done one. See you in a minute. Okay, so I've done this. I couldn't do it on camera because I had to use a magnifier. It's not very easy. I put the pivot through, hung the hinges down, but we got there in the end. As you can see, this one I think is a little bit tapered, but not to worry. But they're on there now, so that's good. Right, looking in the instructions, we've got this winch mechanism thing here. So we've got this winch mechanism thing here, which is going on the side. There's no hole for it. It sort of goes about there where I put a pencil mark. But there's no hole for it. In fact, I need to check my references to check that is right, because I'm not going to just trust the instructions. Those hinges, by the way, they've got that. You can see on there those two parts. They're showing you the slots go rearwards on both of them. They don't. They actually face each other. So the rear hatch opens towards the front hatch opens towards the back. So bear that in mind. I'm just going to go and check my references before I draw that hole. In the meantime, I've got these parts off. This one you have to drill a hole through. This is part 21. So that's going like that. Put that in there. That's gone together there. And then I'm going to put a drop of cement on here and just glue that in there. That's a bit wonky on there, but we'll get it straight before we put it on. Let that glue go off a bit, and then I can pull it all about a bit. I don't think that end face is very straight, to be honest. But we'll, as I say, we'll let that dry off a bit, and then I'll straighten all up. You can see it's very, very wonky indeed. Alright, so I've drilled the hole. That's about where I go, looking at some references, and I've managed to get this a bit better. And I've gone round and just cleaned up the edges so that it's bit tidy. It's just basically, it's going to be a hand witch, isn't it? They inside there, so there's going to be a rope going around there which will loop forward, and I think that's what they use to fire the charge or lower the height of the beam or whatever. So there we go. Looking at the instructions now, we have our propeller to build up. That's going to be quite a little job, so I think I might get the shaft off and we get the propeller built up. We've got photo etch propeller blades on there, and they're not telling us to bend them. But looking at reference pictures, it looks like they do have a sort of bend in them, so we'll have a look at that as well. So I'll get all this off the sprues, and then I'll come back. Okay then guys, I started filming this and I cut it out because it was probably the most boring piece of footage I've ever made. What I've done, I've gone to my box of spare tank wheels, and I found this idler off of something. It's got 6 nubs on it, so I cut the centre out of the back so it sits down flat on the base, and then what I've done is drilled a hole and put the actual hub of the propeller into the centre, and then used them to line up to get the position for the 3 blades. So if I get it in the right angle, you'll see they're about right. And then from the side, I just went around with this sponge and just made sure that all the blades were about the same height. I think that one needs to just come up a touch. And I've used the ASK instant glue, which seems to work really, really well. You just literally touch them and that's it, they're on. And it's remaining quite flexible as well, which is good. They're not just breaking off, as you can see. And what I did, I put a piece of tape around there, a thin piece of tape you can see, just put it around so they're all the same height, so it all looks quite even. But you're never going to see it from the side anyway, because it's got a shroud going around it, and when you look at it from the back, it's got a great big rudder in the way, so it doesn't need to be perfect. I've also, you can see I've put a slight roll into the blade as well, just by putting the photo etch on a sponge and rolling over it. You can't really make it as good as the real one was, because then it won't fit the hub. But I think that's a bit better than just having them flat. So there we are. So now that's done like that, what I will do is take the tape away if I haven't super glued it on. It looks like it's going to come off okay. There we go. And now what I can do is use some of the VMS black, and I'm going to put that in from behind into each fillet, just like so, and that'll give it a lovely bit of support. And this VMS glue is flexible. So there we go. Right, that's in like that. In fact, what I think I'll do is I'll put some on this side as well and just let it all blend in together, and it'll form like a sort of little nest around the base of each blade then. It probably had a sort of radius in there or something, because it would have been fabricated or machined from brass or whatever it was. It was probably steel, wasn't it? So there we go. So I'm just going to go around and check again. Check all these blades are roughly the same height. As I say, it's not going to be seen from the side anyway, but as long as it's sort of right. So there we go. I'm happy with that now. Happy with how that's come out. So that can go to one side and be left alone. In fact, I won't put it there because I might drop something on it. I'll put it on top of the box over here, and then we can move along. This is now nice and dry. I've been able to sand that, get it nice and smooth. So that can go over there on top of the box as well. In fact, I'll put it in the upturned. We've got this stand base, makes a good little tray. So right, what's next? We've got these pieces here we've got to go around, and those pieces of brass are going to fit into this part here, which is number 6. So we can get this off and see how it fits. In fact, I'll do this off camera. You don't need to see me do this, do you? I'll be back in a minute. Right, so still working on this rear end. I'm basically going to build up some sub-assemblies, I think, and bring it all together at the end. So we've got these 2 flat brass sheets. I've rolled one here, and I'm glad I did one off camera because I would have looked an idiot. It's not very easy to roll, so I could anneal it, but I don't really want to. But I've started off here with a sanding sponge and an X-Acto handle. Okay, and make sure you get the ends. The ends need to be really good, and what you'll find is you sort of get this sort of shape. So just flatten it out a bit, and I'm going to come in with this is like a 1.6mm rod, and concentrating on these ends, because what you don't want is it to be like that. You want it to be a constant radius. So once we've got it glued in, I think we'll be able to tweak it. But you can see it's forming this sort of the incorrect shape. So we need to roll it a bit tighter here. Yeah, for some reason it's a harder brass than I'm used to working with. It's not like Edward stuff. So just sort of pull it about a bit, and basically it's got to sit in there. It's got to sit in there like that sort of thing. So I don't know if you can see that. It's basically got to sit around the propeller, and I just chucked it on the floor. Little tip for people, for newer modelers: when you do drop something on the floor, don't ever immediately roll your chair back, because what you'll do, or move your feet, because you'll either stand on it or you'll roll your chair over it. So always look to see where it is first. And if you can't see it, look down, make sure it's not where you're going to put your feet. get off the chair, don't move the chair, otherwise you guarantee you'll always roll the bloody chair over it, especially if it's a really fragile part. As you can see, that's gone round quite nicely now, and as I say, we can tweak it once it's in. So I'm just going to basically glue them in there, put them in together like so, and hopefully it'll look a lot better than it does now. This one's come out quite nice. So we can glue them in there, and that will be our shroud that's going to go around our propeller. So I need to check as well on the position. I think it needs to butt up against here as well. So I'll get that glued in and I'll be back. Okay, so moving on. I've done it. Believe me, you wouldn't want to see me do this. This has been a nightmare. As you can see, we've got the propellers done. So the propeller's done, it's all dry and everything. So what we can do is just pop that in there, just like so. And then this piece will pop on the top. And I'll bet it won't come on because look at that. Bloody ridiculous. I've done this about 3 times now. As soon as you put the camera on, it all goes pear-shaped. That will now go over the top of there and sit in those grooves, like so. Okay, you get the idea. Now, looking in the instructions, this brass ring, they show it here as being underneath and then underneath. So you're going to go underneath this vertical bar here, this horizontal bar here, and underneath that lower ones, which is going to put the actual circle below the center line of the prop. It's going to look really weird. And if you look at it here, they've got it actually on the sides of these members. So you sort of have to decide really what to do. I've put them both inside. I've ended up with something which is slightly oval, as you can see, but the propeller fits in there very tightly, which is good, and it's sort of centered as well. So I think it looks okay. It probably could be better. If I did put it underneath that one, it would probably make it round because it would lengthen it this way, but then it would be off center with the propeller because the hole there is centered around those 2 slots that these legs go in. The other thing, of course, you could do is glue this to the sides of that, and then you'd be all right. But just to show you how strong that VMS glue is, I can, you know, it's very, very strong indeed. It's really good, and it's flexible. It doesn't just crack and break. So so there we go. Right, what's next? Okay, moving ever forward. Got a few bits and pieces off the sprue. I also decided to change what I've done here. I've actually now glued this brass to the edges of the plastic as it's shown here. Okay, so I think that's a lot better. It also gives the propeller a bit more clearance in there. So I think it's going to go together a lot easier like that. So that's what I've done there. I'll give that super glue a bit of a clean up when it's all fully hardened. As for now, I'll just leave it like it is. Right, so as you can see, this part here doesn't have a number, so I don't know where it goes. I can't see it. If I see something, I'll put it on. We obviously got these 2 parts here for the stand, and then the only remaining piece is this ramrod at the front, which carries the charge. So obviously that was kept farther away from the submarine so that it didn't blow the submarine up. Which I think in the end did happen, didn't it? I think it actually did. Didn't the shockwave, isn't that what made it sank or something? Or that's what they thought. So got these tubes off here. I've got to draw the ends of these yet, but they're going to sit in there like that. Just going to sit in there. So they are the sort of breather tubes. When they're near the surface, they would go up and they would come out of the surface, and when they're down, they go down. And obviously there'd be like a half circle in there that would seal them off. We've got this rod here which is going to fit in the back. I haven't tried it in there yet, but there is a hole. But I think I'll have to probably drill that out a bit deeper. But I'll get that sorted. We've got this that's the rod there, part 15. And we've got this vertical link here. This is obviously steering gear 31, and that's going to go onto a couple of bits of brass at the bottom, but it needs to fit the end of that rod. So I've drilled it out 0.8, and now that rod will sit on there like that. So that's all cool. These 2 parts here, 23. Okay, this one's absolutely fine, and you can see it's got a chamfer on one end and a sort of flat on the other end, so that's going to sort of fit on there like that, as you can see. Okay, and the other end of it's going to go onto here, where there's like a there's a marking on the side of the plastic there, so that's going to go like that, but that's okay. But the other one, here we are, you can see it's very misshapen. It's when it's come out of the mould, it's all gone misshapen. So I've decided to scrap those, and I've made a couple from plastic rod, so they'll be a lot nicer. They'll fit a lot nicer as well. I need to just make that one a bit straighter. So there we go. So I'll give that a clean up and off camera. So they're going to fit a lot nicer and look a lot better because you won't have the mould seam and all that. If you remember going back, in part 1 I opened up that little slot there before we put the whole house together. Well, there's a piece of scrap brass, and that's why, because that part there, 10, has got to go in there, and that's going to support that big beam at the front. We've got these rings here which support the charge. We've got these 2 angle pieces here which are going to fit in front of the towers, and then we've got this barb on the front which hooks into the wooden hull that you're trying to sink. So I've got these little parts here, 8. I can only see. Oh no, there's another one there. Sorry, I didn't see that. Yeah, so we've got 2 grabs there, 2 grabs there. So we've got 2 there, 2 there. I'll probably make those from wire actually, rather than use the brass, because they would have been rod. I'll probably just make them from some wire, roll it round, and then drill the hull and put them in. That'd be a lot better than having 2 bits of brass, the photo etched brass sticking out. So we are nearly done. So I'll get these bits off. These need to be folded up and fitted. I think I'll do that next. Oh, I fitted these little fairings here. They're glued on. The dive planes I haven't glued on yet. You can see they're just placed in just to see how they look. But we are basically pretty much there now. So I'm going to get these off and then get them folded up and fitted. Okay, so from what I can see, these have got to be bent like that. So these are going to fit on the hull, sort of like that. So you bend that so that you get a flat fitting flange, and that's just going to sit on the middle like that kind of thing. So I'll show you how I bent it. So basically start off by putting the photo etched brass in a folder, and put the blade into the groove, and then slide the part under, and then just come along with the blade, make a mark, just get under there and fold that up. So that's up at 90 degrees, and then I'm going to use my pliers, because you can't get beyond 90 degrees on here because of the edges, so that will enable me to just push that down and just get it bent over beyond the 90 degrees, as you can see there. And then what I'm going to do is just put this in here, just nip that to hold it, grab my blade, get the blade into the groove, and then come along just like so, and then push that over just like that. Get it all sort of, so it's kind of, what you want is this, the long part to be centered along there, and you want that to be perpendicular to that. So there we go, that's those 2 made. So we can put our folder away. I don't think we need it again. No, we don't. We don't need our folder again. So we'll put that away. And then I can just simply get these glued on. Alright, so they're glued on now, but I've only glued them at the back on the vertical part. So they're glued on and nicely centered there. So what I'm going to do to get these glued in place, take a knife blade, just get some super glue on the knife blade, just like that. A little bit too much on there, so I'm just going to wipe some away. There we go. And then we're just going to literally tap the photo etch and let that sit like that, and then come along with a cotton bud and just wipe away any excess like that. Now that should dry, and I'll just tack it into place, and that should dry pretty much invisible. So we'll just get another drop on here. Now this side's different because it sits one side of a raised section rather than having a raised section to sit in the middle of, and so as not to ruin those rivets, I'm just going to put some glue on this side and then let that go down in just like so, and then that'll let that dry, let it tack off, and then I'll be able to run a blade along and we'll get a lovely sort of fillet of super glue in there, and that will make it look all as one then. Okay, so I'll show you how I do this. So again, with the blade, just get some super glue on there, and then we can simply run the blade along the joint, just like so, and this VMS thin will capillary under. There we go. And then we just get a cotton bud, squeeze the end of it, just gently wipe it along and remove the excess, just like so. And you can see there where the glue is capillaried under onto the other side. And we've got a really neat and tidy joint. There we are. And then we'll do the same on the rear, on the stern should I say. It's a very good way of applying super glue into corners if you build a box or something. There we go. And there you can see we've got that glued in now, nice and firmly. It's going to be a very, very fragile model, this one. You have to be very, very careful with handling it because we've got a lot of this sort of, you know, photo etch brass like here on these ends. It's just butt joint. There's no flange or anything on there. So we've got these little pieces of brass here which are going to steer the rudder, and they are going to fit over those pins on there. But oh dear, the pins are too big. Now I think what we'll probably do is just leave them on the top like that. So what I might do is drill through and put a piece of rod in there just to give something to locate, because if we knock them, they're just going to break away. So I think I'll do that. I think I'll just drill through and put a piece of rod through. Okay, so been playing around with this rear end a bit, and I noticed that the prop was sitting a bit low in this circle, so it just didn't look right. So what I've done, I've drilled out this hole here, 2mm, and then super glued a piece of 2mm rod in there. What I'm going to do now is take my Sharpie, get a nice black spot on there, and then I'm going to take my calipers. If you don't have these, you could use a pair of compass points or something like that. What I'm going to do is measure the distance there, and that is 20.7. Okay, and that's measuring the distance between the slots that this part goes in. So obviously the center of that ring is going to be the center of those slots. So that's 20.7. So half of 20.7 is 10.35. We don't need to be mega accurate here. It just needs to be close because we're just making a circle, making a scribe line really. So what I'll do is holding the caliper into that slot there and then just sliding the top point to leave a line, and then the bottom one there. And as you can see now, we've got a line on that circle, and you can see that it's off center with the moulding. So the actual moulding is out, which would have made it even worse. So I said it was too low, it's too high, which would have made it even worse because they're asking you to put that brass on the inside of this one and the outside of that one, which brings the brass circle down while the propeller's even further up than we wanted it. So what we can do now is, with a sharp point, you can pick up on the center of that line and just make an indentation, and then we could come along and drill. Now I would use these things here, these drills like this, but they're absolutely useless for stuff like that, so much better off with micro box. And when you get a micro box, make sure the micro box is all in capital letters. Get them from Premium Hobbies, they're £9.95. NMB10 will get you 10% off, so that'd be £9. You'll see them on eBay for £2.95 and stuff. If it hasn't got the micro box in capital letters, don't buy them. And if they're gold coloured, like titanium coated or whatever, don't buy them either. They're absolute junk. So you have been warned. Somebody did message on one of my videos the other day and said they had micro box and they, like, 2/3 of the drills were blunt, and I said, well, they're not genuine then. And he came back and he said, you're right, the micro box is in small case, is in lower case. So we can pick up on that little mark that we made, make sure we're nice and square, just drill through with a 0.6. Just drill into there like that. Not sure if I went deep enough then. That's right, yeah, I did a review video, didn't I, talking about this this beautiful little David Union 150 pin vise. Right, so that's piloted out, and then we'll go up to like a 0.9 or something like that. It's always best to go up in stages when you're drilling holes, so you don't run the risk of it splitting then. And that's the other problem with those things I just showed you, those drills, they will split plastic open. Because they don't drill themselves through, they actually just, it's like a bloody coarse thread, they just grind themselves in. They're okay in a power tool, but they're no good for manual drilling. So now we need to measure the spindle on the propeller, and that is 1.6. So come along, we'll go 1.6. There we go. We can put the prop in there now. It should sit in there nice and firmly. Yes, it does. So it's a far better fit than the standard hole anyway. And then this will go on here. And our propeller should be nicely in the centre. And it is. So there we are. This is the great thing about these short run kits. They do demand some skill and thought and planning and everything. It's not like, you know, it's not like a Tamiya. This is not a Tamiya kit by any stretch of the imagination. If it was, it would probably be £100. So there we go. So that's gone like that. And then that's going to go on like that. Like so. Have to make sure it goes square and everything. And then we're going to put that rod in on the top. We've got these two bits of photo etch to go in here. Now, I wouldn't suggest putting these bits on here until you've fitted everything up, because we don't know what angle they're going to be on. Those little bits of photo etch brass I'm talking about. So we're getting to the point now where we're going to have to fit all this up. But it's going to be very, very fragile, so I really want to be doing that last. But really there is nothing else to do on the actual main hull itself, so we may as well start looking at getting this in. Now I'm a little bit concerned that prop is sitting at an angle, and I don't want to pull on those blades because it's likely to break. There we go. What I'm going to do is just get that 1.6 drill again and just open that hole up a little bit, just to make it a bit looser. There we go, that's better. Now we've got some wiggle room now, so we can get some extra thin, get that in around there, get that glued in, make sure it's straight in both planes, so it is. And we'll leave that to dry, and then we can look at getting this shroud on. I don't want to go disturbing it until it's dry. Okay, moving forward, I've done quite a bit. This rod at the front, this ramrod I call it, where the charge goes, number 3, was a bit of a mess plastic wise. It was very oval and, you know, seams and stuff, so I've remade it out of brass rod. That's just a piece of 1.5mm brass rod. The other thing I noticed was these things here, that these little hooks, these are what the charge hangs in. Okay, and then that's going to sit on there like that. That's going to go onto there, and then that charge is going to sit in there. As you can see, they wouldn't go over the plastic. You can see here the plastic is, it's too big for it to go over, so I thought I'd remake it. Plus it's a hell of a lot stronger. This barb bit on the end is seriously sharp, so be very careful with that. I suggest if you've got youngsters around that could get near this when it's built, I wouldn't put it on. That is seriously sharp, and I've caught my finger on it a couple of times and it does draw blood. So there we go. And all I've done here to make the raised areas, because you can see where's the plastic piece I threw away? I can't see it now. Here it is. You've got like raised pieces around here. You can see as well they aren't even. So I did try and drill it out on the end. It was just, that's rubbish. So what I've done is made those out of Tamiya masking tape, 3mm to 7mm, and then what you do is just on the end of the tape, just put some super glue, just, you know, as you stick it down. And then what I'll do now is, where's my glue applicator? There it is. I make a hell of a mess on the bench today. What I'll do is I will put some super glue on there now. Let that go off, okay, and that will cover up the end of the tape. Look at that, I managed to get the ends in exactly the same spot. That's unusual. I didn't even try. So there we go. So that could be left to dry, and then we'll sand that down, and that'll get rid of the step where the end of the tape is. So that can sit there like that. Right. So now that it comes to doing these hooks, if you remember we had these parts on here, number 8 on the photo etch. Don't much like the look of flat photo etch things. So what I'm going to do with these is I've bent them and I've made them out of 0.4 wire, and then I've drilled a 0.4 hole. It was actually 0.35 wire, and I'll just put them in there like so. Pull this one over, and if I were doing this kit again I would put these in before I put the hole halves together, I think. There we go, just pop that down like that, and then that'll go into its correct depth, and all we've got to do is pull it back, put some super glue on there onto the wires, that'll capillary down, and then just push it down into the desired position like that. There we go. And then with a cotton bud, let's get a soft Johnson's cotton bud, just remove any excess just like that, and there you go. There's your wire loop. Looks much better than a bit of photo etch, doesn't it? So I'll get the other ones done, and then I'll come back and we'll do something else. I think we're going to get this finished in part 2. Okay, moving on. Fitted these 2 little steering bars to the rudder, and as you can see, this bar here is supposed to hang vertically, and you can see that if I put it on there, it's going to be like right back on an angle like that, and that's going to just look stupid. So I've decided that basically what they've done, they've put this pin on the wrong side of the rudder. It should be on that side, not on that side. And you can see that basically, if you look at the position of it, it's 5mm from the back, and the new hole I've drilled is about 5mm from the front. So they've obviously put it on the wrong side. So we're going to take those away, and then sort of flatten that off. So what I'll do is get a knife under there and just pop that one off of there, and I'll pop that one off of there. There we go. And then what we'll do is we'll come in with our cheap cutters, cut through that piece of brass that's in there, and then I'll have to gently get in and cut that piece of brass out, and then sand it down and fill the hole. So I'll get on and do that. Okay, so there we go, we're done. I've put these pieces on. I've put some super glue in there just to sort of simulate a weld or something or whatever. I don't even know if they had welding in these days, but it just fills in the gap, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So basically, yeah, I've got the masks on there. You can already see them, but they're the kit provided masks on those 2 little portholes in the hatches there. Obviously the rest will be done after it's finished with some crystal clear. I've made the stand up. It's not that easy to do. There's absolutely no position in it whatsoever. You just got to sort of put it where you think it looks right, and then try and get it all squared up and everything, which is easier said than done. But the model just sits on there like that, so that's all good. And then we've got you've seen the brass arm at the front, and then we've got the charge in there. That's got to be painted polished brass, so I'll paint that separately. And then that's going to go onto this piece in the front. That's just going to sit on there. So that'll sit on there. It makes it to quite a long model. So that'll just sit in there, and then we've got ropes, as you can see here. We've got to add some rigging. So we've got a rope that comes out of the nose, out of the bow, and then goes down and around and back up into the other side. And then this one here is coming out the back of the charge,
and it's going around that winch there, which I've fitted. I've obviously got to fit these, but I'm going to fit these after it's painted because I want a bit of weather and stuff, and they'll just get in the way. This part here is shown on the instructions, but it has no number, so I'm assuming it's not used, but I've kept it just in case I spot it somewhere. But basically, yeah, that is it. So now I'm just going to give it a coat of primer, put a coat of black, and let it sit for a few hours before we start doing anything else with it. So we'll call that a day for part 2. I know it's been shorter than usual, but parts 1 and 2 can be the build, and then part 3 can be the painting and the weathering, whatever. I'm not going to go too mad with the weathering because obviously it went down, it was built, it sunk, it was captured, it sank, it was captured, it went down, it did its mission, and then it laid at the bottom of the sea for over 100 years. So you know, it's never going to be accurate. It's never going to be like all really rusty and stuff, but we'll do some special effects to try and make it look a bit more interesting. And then when we've got the primer on, we might see that we need to do some other bits and pieces like around here and stuff. But there we go. I'm going to spray the Mr. Metal primer around the back here first, and on these pieces here, just to try and give the paint something to key to. But I find personally none of the etch primers really work very well at all. So there we go. So that's, as I say, that's going to go on there, and you can see it's quite a long model. With that on there, it's about 520mm long, so it's a big old model with that. So as I say, if you have got youngsters, I would leave that off because that's going to get in your ears. Right, so we'll call it a day there, as I say. So that has been the build of this kit here, Mikr Mir, CSS H.L. Hunley, bought for me by the lovely Wendy. Thank you very much, Wendy. And I hope you've been watching this, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing me build it. So, thank you for watching, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit that little square box there. That'll get you subscribed. And if you hit the notifications bell, and you'll get told when I'm putting more videos up, and I do put a lot up. And then if you have liked the video, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't liked it, give it a thumbs down. So I'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching. See you soon for part 3. Bye for now.